The graphics card or GPU is the most important component when it comes to your gaming performance. If you want to achieve higher FPS, this is the first component that you should be thinking about. That being said, if you get this component wrong, you will most likely not be happy with the level of performance that you are getting with your system, and your game will feel laggy. So, in this video, I will make sure that doesn't happen to you, because I will show you the best GPUs for gaming in 2024 for every budget and every resolution: 1080p, 1440p and 4K. And it doesn't matter if you have $150 to spend or you have $2,000 or more, because as I said before, I will cover every single budget throughout this one. On top of that, I will show you which graphics cards to avoid, and I will show you the level of performance of my recommended graphics cards. That way, if you end up buying one of these, you know what to expect in terms of gaming performance. By the way, all the links to these graphics cards will be down below in the video description. My name is Valentino, and if you find valuable information throughout this video, leave a like and subscribe. And with that being said, let's start. So first, we are going to start with 1080p resolution, and I'm going to start talking about the GPUs that you should always avoid if you want good performance for the price. The first graphics card is the RTX 3050, both the 6GB version and the 8GB version. And the reason why you should avoid these two graphics cards is because they are too expensive for the level of performance that you are getting. The cheapest model for the 6GB version is $167, which is a lot of money for the level of performance that you're getting, and you are getting only 6 gigs of VRAM, which is not ideal for today's video games. If you want to play high GPU demanding games, they may require more than 6 gigs of VRAM, so this one is not ideal. And the cheapest 8GB model is $230. Once again, very expensive compared to the competition, which I will talk about in a second. But in terms of MSRP cost per frame, meaning price to performance, the 3050s rank among the worst GPUs in the entire market. With the next one, we have the RX 6500 XT. You should avoid this graphics card at all costs, and the reason why is because it only has 4 gigs of VRAM, the level of performance is weak, and the price is around $140. At around the same price point, for a little bit more, you can get the Intel Arc A580, which is a much better graphics card, but I will talk about my recommended GPUs in a second. The next one that you should avoid is the RTX 3060 8GB version. The reason why you should avoid this one is because it is basically a cut down version of the 3060 12GB version, and it performs worse. So it's not ideal for the price, even if you want to buy an Nvidia graphics card, because for around $25 more, you can get the 3060 12GB version, which is better in terms of performance. You get more VRAM, it is much better overall, and for around $30 more, you can get the RTX 4060, which is much better in terms of gaming performance compared to the 3060 8GB version. But even the 12GB version will give you about 15 plus FPS on average at 1080p high to ultra settings in high demanding games, so it is a much better option than the 3060 8GB version. The next one that you should avoid is the RX 7600 8GB version. Now, I do not hate this one as much because it is not terrible in terms of price to performance, but it is basically the same graphics card as the RX 6650 XT, which is about $20 less. So you are spending $20 more for basically the same graphics card, and the only good thing here is that you get AV1 encoding. So if you are going to be using AV1 encoding for your streamings, then this is actually not a bad option. But if you're not, then there's no reason why you should pick this one instead of the 6650 XT, which is cheaper and you get the same level of performance. And then the last graphics card for 1080p that you should avoid is the RX 7600 XT 16GB version. The reason why you should avoid this one is because at the moment it's around $15 more than the RX 6750 XT, and it's about 16% slower when it comes to gaming performance. So it's more expensive for less performance than the competition, which is from AMD as well. So AMD's competition is AMD in this case. And it's not like the last one where if you spend more you get the same performance, because here you are spending more and you are getting a slower performance. So I would try to avoid this graphics card, especially if you want the best price to performance GPU out there. However, the 7600 XT is not terrible because you get 16 gigs of VRAM. So if your tasks require more than 12 gigs of VRAM for some reason, then this one becomes a good option. Otherwise, if your favorite programs or games do not require more than 12 gigs of VRAM, the 6750XT is a much better option. But as I said before, I will talk about my recommended GPUs in a moment, and that moment is after me telling you to subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying this video and finding valuable information so far. Now let's talk about the best graphics cards for 1080p resolution when it comes to price to performance. And I will start with the budget graphics cards. Here you have two options. You have the Intel Arc A580 and the RX 6600. The Intel Arc A580 is going for around $160 and it's going to give you about 65 plus FPS on average when it comes to 1080p resolution, high to ultra settings in high demanding titles. And when it comes to esports shooters such as Fortnite or Valorant, you will be able to achieve 144 plus FPS on average depending on the CPU, because the CPU is quite important for this type of games. So if you have a 144 1080p monitor, feel free to buy this graphics card because it's going to be amazing and the price for this one is great. Now the other graphics card that I've mentioned is the RX 6600. This one is going for around $190 and it's going to give you very similar performance compared to the Intel Arc A580. You will be achieving 70 plus FPS on average when it comes to 1080p high demanding titles, and you can expect 165 plus FPS when it comes to esports shooters, once again depending on the CPU. Now the main difference between this one and the Intel Arc A580 is that AMD has better drivers optimization. Even though Intel right now is not terrible, it's definitely better than before, but if you want to play games from day one, AMD has better drivers, so the RX 6600 is actually better in that regard. It is also slightly faster when it comes to gaming performance, but keep in mind that if you are a content creator, the Intel Arc A580 is a much better option. So if you want to do both content creation and gaming at the same time, you may consider the Intel GPU instead of the AMD one, but if you want the best pure price to performance for gaming, then the RX 6600 is going to be better, especially considering that you get better drivers optimization. Now let's talk about mid-range graphics cards. Here once again you have two options. You have the RX 6650 XT and then you have the RTX 4060 from Nvidia. The RX 6650 XT is going for around $230 and will allow you to play at 85 plus FPS on average when it comes to 1080p high demanding titles, and then for esports shooters you can expect 240 plus FPS, for example in a game like CS2, once again depending on the CPU. And don't worry, because I will talk about the CPUs later on this video in case you want to get the perfect CPU for these graphics cards. That way you do not bottleneck your graphics card and you get the best performance possible for the price that you are paying. But anyway, after that we have the RTX 4060 as I said before, and I have mixed feelings for this one because I do believe that it's a great graphics card in terms of performance. I just don't love the pricing and the fact that you get 8 gigs of VRAM for $300, but in terms of performance it is very nice and you will be achieving 90 plus FPS on average when it comes to high demanding games and around 300 plus FPS when it comes to esports shooters, once again depending on the CPU. But I have made an entire video talking about this graphics card in games like Fortnite and Valorant, and in fact this system that you see right here has the RTX 4060. So if you want to see the full level of performance that you can get in both high demanding games and esports shooters, you will have that video in the top right of the screen. And then we have the best performance 1080p graphics card, which is the RX 6750 XT, and it's going for around the same price as the RTX 4060, between $300 to $310, and it's much faster and also comes with 12 gigs of VRAM, which makes it a 1440p capable graphics card, where the 4060 is also capable of 1440p, but since you don't get 12 gigs of VRAM in that GPU, it's not ideal for you to play at 1440p. But anyway, the 6750 XT will allow you to play at 100 plus FPS on average in high demanding games at 1080p high to ultra settings, and then you will be able to achieve between 300 to 360 plus FPS on average, and also depending on the settings and game that you are playing. But in my opinion, this one is the best price to performance high-end graphics card for 1080p resolution. Now, if you want to jump up to 1440p, or maybe you already have a 1440p monitor right now, or perhaps you will eventually upgrade down the line, well, first I want to talk about the GPUs that you should avoid buying for 1440p resolution. So let's start with the GPUs that you should avoid for 1440p resolution. The first one, 7600 XT, for the same reasons that I've mentioned before. The next one is the RTX 4060 Ti 8GB version, and the reason why is because it is too expensive for an 8GB graphics card at around $375 USD. So you can actually get a better graphics graphics cards when it comes to performance with more VRAM for the same price. And I will talk about that on the best 1440p graphics cards recommendations in a second. With the next one we have the RTX 4070 Ti. Don't get me wrong, this graphics card is amazing and it is the one that I have on my current gaming PC that I use for content creation and gaming. So in terms of performance, it's great for 1440p high FPS. I have a 1440p monitor, but keep in mind that right now it is not good in terms of price performance. It has 12 gigs of VRAM and it's going for around 700 USD. So it is super expensive, especially when it comes to gaming, because at the same price you can get better performance and more VRAM, or you can spend a bit more and get the 4070 Ti Super, which is a much better option and I will talk about in a second. But before you start hating me on the comment section, I love this graphics card, I have it myself, but it is more for content creation and gaming at the same time, and as of right now it's just not good in terms of price or performance. And if you are going to build a PC from scratch, you want to have a better graphics card than this one if you are already going to spend $700 on a GPU. So even though I like it, as of right now it's not the best option for gamers. Now let's talk about the best GPUs for 1440p resolution. We are going to start with the budget ones, and here the only budget one is the RX 6750 XT, which I recommend it for the high-end 1080p graphics cards, but it can also run 1440p with no issues. The reason why this one is the best budget one is because it's $300 and it will allow you to play at 70 plus FPS on average when it comes to 1440p high demanding titles, and you can expect 200 plus FPS on average when it comes to esports shooters depending on your CPU. In some cases you can even average 240 plus FPS or even 300 plus FPS depending on the exact game, your CPU and the settings. On the mid-range level we have the RX 6800. This one is going for a bit more than the 6750 XT for around $360, and it will allow you to play at 85 plus FPS on average in high demanding titles on high to ultra settings, and then it will allow you to play at 240 plus FPS on average on esports shooters. And you also have the RX 7700 XT, which is basically the same graphics card as the 6800, but as of right now it's going for $400. So if you see the RX 6800 going for around $20 to $30 less, just go with that one because they basically perform the same. The main differences are that the 7700 XT has AV1 encoding, which is good for streaming. So if you want to do streaming, this might be the better option for you, but you have to keep in mind that the 7700 XT has 12 gigs of VRAM, so you have less VRAM to work with, and it is also more expensive. So it's up to you. In my opinion, the 6800 as of right now is better in terms of price to performance, and it is going to be my recommendation for you. On the upper mid-range level, we have three different graphics cards. We have the RX 7800 XT, which as of right now is going for $480 and will allow you to play at 100 plus FPS on average in high demanding titles, high to ultra settings, and 300 plus FPS on average in esports shooters depending on your CPU. And then we have the RX 7900G RE, which is the upgraded version of the 7800 XT. Basically performs about the same at 105 FPS on average in high demanding titles and 300 plus FPS on esports shooters, and it is going for around $520 all the way up to $550. The main difference here is that if you overclock the 7900G RE, you are going to be getting much faster performance, close to the RX 7900 XT. So if you're going to overclock it, then I do believe that the 7900G RE is a much better option than the 7800 XT. Both have 16 gigs of VRAM, so you can also play at 4K if you wanted to, 60 plus FPS on average, depending on the game of course. And if you use FSR, which is the upscaler from AMD, you should be expecting around 70 plus FPS on average when it comes to 4K resolution in high demanding games. But of course, it's going to depend on the exact settings and the game that you are playing. And then the last GPU here is from Nvidia, and it is the RTX 4070 Super. This one is a bit more expensive at $565, and it is also the fastest one when it comes to gaming. You can expect around 108 FPS on average, very similar anyway compared to the AMD competition, but you get a better level of ray tracing performance. You also get DLSS, which is the better upscaler compared to FSR. If you're a content creator, this GPU is usually better when it comes to productivity work and content creation softwares, so it is more complete if you want more than just gaming. Keep in mind that the 4070 Super has 12 gigs of VRAM, and that is the only thing I do not like about this graphics card, because it is quite expensive, and 12 gigs of VRAM, even though for 1440p is enough, and even for 4K in some games, in the future games are going to require more than 12 gigs of VRAM. But as of right now, it is fine, and if you need an NVIDIA GPU, the 4070 Super is a great one. And then we have the best performance GPUs, which are the RX 7900 XT and the RTX 4070 Ti Super. The RX 7900 XT is going for $700 USD and will give you 120 plus FPS on average when it comes to 1440p high to ultra settings in high demanding titles, which is an insane number considering that we are talking about the most high demanding games out there at this resolution. And then you can play at 360 plus FPS in esports shooters like Fortnite or Valorant, depending on the CPU. And then we have the 4070 Ti Super, which is more expensive at $789 and very similar in terms of gaming performance, over 120 FPS as well when it comes to high demanding titles on high to ultra settings, and of course 360 plus FPS when it comes to esports shooters. The difference here is similar to the 4070 Super with the 7900G RE. Basically the 4070 Ti Super is the better graphics card overall, but I feel more comfortable recommending this one because it has 16 gigs of VRAM, and the price difference, even though is almost $100, if you are already spending $700 on a GPU, you might as well spend an extra 100 and get the better GPU overall, with better level of ray tracing, DLSS, better for productivity and content creation, also better for AI type of applications. So it is overall the better graphics card, but the 7900 XT is the better one in terms of pure price to performance. So if you are not thinking of using any type of upscaling technology, DLSS or FSR, and you will not play with ray tracing on, and you don't do anything more than gaming, well, the 7900 XT is cheaper and it will give you basically the same rasterized performance, so that one maybe makes more sense for you. But anyway, no matter which GPU you get out of the two, both are great, and that is the reason why the 4070 Ti is not recommended at this price point, just because spend the extra 100 and get the 4070 Ti Super, or get the 7900 XT, which is much better than the 4070 Ti when it comes to price to performance. And now let's talk about the highest end GPUs out there, which are 4K GPUs. If you want to play at 4K resolution, then this is the perfect section for you. But before going there, I want to say once again, if you are finding valuable information, leave a like and subscribe. You are going to be helping the channel a lot. That being said, thank you so much, and let's go back to the 4K graphics cards. So the only GPU that you should avoid here is the RTX 4070 Ti once again, for the same reasons I've mentioned before. But here is a bigger no for me, because the 4070 Ti, yes, it is capable of 60 plus FPS on average at 4K, so it's not like it's terrible, but the VRAM issue becomes bigger here. So if you want to play the most high demanding games at 4K Ultra, then it is going to be a bigger no because of those 12 gigs of VRAM. Don't get me wrong, anyway, if you use, for example, DLSS and you play on high settings in high demanding games, you are going to be fine. But once again, just don't be stupid and buy the better graphics card for the same price, or spend a bit extra. And those are the two best budget graphics cards for 4K. The 7900 XT and the 4070 Ti Super are being mentioned once again. Now, the 7900 XT is going to allow you to achieve 75 plus FPS on average when it comes to high to ultra settings in high demanding games, native resolution, so no upscaling on, and then you can achieve 240 plus FPS when it comes to esports shooters, depending on the CPU. And then the 4070 Ti Super will allow you to play at 70 plus FPS on average, so very similar in terms of performance, just slightly slower than the 7900 XT, and then you can achieve the same 240 plus FPS when it comes to esports shooters. If you have more money to spend, we have the upper mid-range level, where we have the RX 7900 XTX, which is going for $900 USD, and it is going to give you about 90 plus FPS on average in high to ultra settings in high demanding titles, and 300 plus FPS on esports shooters. Now, this one is about $200 more expensive than the 7900 XT, so in terms of price to performance, the 7900 XT is better, but you have to keep in mind that the 7900 XTX is faster, and if you are willing to spend those $200 extra to get the XTX, I highly recommend you considering the next one, which is the high-end GPU, that I have on this list, and that one is the RTX 4080 Super. This one is more expensive at around $1,000, but it is the better graphics card. And just like the 4070 Ti Super with the 7900 XT, the 4080 Super is slightly slower when it comes to pure gaming performance, and you can expect around 85 plus FPS on average instead of 90 when it comes to high to ultra settings in high demanding titles native resolution. But once again, you get DLSS, which has a better image quality, even though at 4K FSR works really well anyway, and you will be happy with FSR if you play at 4K, but you get a better level of ray tracing, and you know the rest. I've been mentioning the Nvidia feature set in this entire video and why I recommend them at the higher end levels. So the 4080 Super is the better graphics card, going for around $70 to $100 more, so I would recommend you buying this one instead of the 7900 XTX, unless you only care about pure gaming performance and you just don't care about anything else. And then if you want the best performance, there's only one GPU and it has no competition, and I'm talking about the RTX 4090. This one is the most expensive one in the market. In terms of price to performance is awful because it is very expensive for the performance that you get, and the price ranges between $1,700 USD to $1,900 or even more, and it's going to give you about 110 plus FPS on average when it comes to 4K ultra native resolution in high demanding titles. So it is by far the fastest in the entire market, but I would only recommend you buying it if you just want the best of the best and you just don't care about spending this amount of money. Because if you care about price to performance and you want to save money, then this is not the right graphics card for you. If you don't have at least $2,500 to spend on your PC build, I wouldn't recommend you buying it. And if you want to be more comfortable with your level of performance and overall aesthetic of your system, I would recommend you spending $3,000 on the entire system around the RTX 4090. But of course, you can get away with $2,500 USD if you want to go with the cheapest components around this RTX 4090. And then you can achieve 360 plus FPS on average when it comes to esports shooters, depending on the CPU. Now, the CPU is quite important as well, and trust me, you do not want to have a CPU that will bottleneck your GPU or any other component, because you can have plenty of bottlenecks in your system that are going to be limiting your GPU performance, and trust me, if that happens, then you are in trouble. For that reason, if you don't have enough PC knowledge, I highly recommend you watching my video on the best gaming PC builds of the month in the top right of the screen, where I go through every budget and every resolution. And I'm talking about 1080p, 1440p and 4K, going from the cheapest system all the way up to the most highest end PC with the RTX 4090 if you want to. And if you need a more personal PC help, where you want me to help you out with your specific budget and needs, whether that's gaming, content creation, and it doesn't matter if you want a pre-built PC or a PC build or maybe a laptop, well, you can ask me any question inside of my PC community. That's going to be the top link in the description, and you will find that link also with every GPU that I recommended inside of this video. Thank you guys for watching, thank you for the support, leave a like and subscribe if you found valuable information, and I will see you on the next one.